Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the MOV Experience podcast. Here for another episode following up Wake Up with Christopher DeSimone. If you missed that, he's live every day, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then also his show is available in post-production on major streaming platforms. Today, I have the opportunity to sit here and speak with a couple folks that one I know in particular that's here in the complex with us, and another one is a fellow podcaster. He has his own podcast, and we'll let him talk about that a little bit as well. But today, we're focusing on hope and how important it is to have hope, and that's what's going to drive this show today. You know, when we talk about Marana Oro Valley Experience, part of our whole programming is business and leadership, and leadership has a lot of hope involved. You got to have a lot of hope to be a leader. You got to have hope for the people that you're leading, have hope for the people that are mentoring you, and have hope for the world around you. And we're going to cover all that today. And I'd like to introduce Stephanie, who is part of True North Counseling here. And let's talk about what you guys do and how you're involved and how you guys know each other.
Well, hello. My name is Stephanie Bert. I own True North Counseling here in Marana, right down the road. I'm a licensed substance abuse counselor, but I also deal with other issues with mental health, anxiety, depression, things like that.
You can move this a little closer to you if you want. Yeah, I know. Here you go.
And that's my entire business is hope, getting people who are in a place where they're not comfortable, their life is not happy, they're struggling for a myriad of different reasons, and just helping them put the pieces back together. You know, everybody has that within themselves to do. Sometimes they just need a little direction on how to get there. And how to start feeling positive again so they can start moving forward in their lives. And while doing this, in the years of doing this, I've met some absolutely amazing people who have shown me, who've encouraged me to keep moving forward in my own life by watching them recreate their own. It's just an amazing experience to watch people who go from struggling to amazing success. And who I have with me today is Benetiz, who was a client of mine many years ago, and I can't do his story credit. Honestly, I could tell you what I know, but he can tell his story much better than I ever could. So,
yeah. Welcome to the show, Ray.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, it takes a lot to get to where you're at, especially where you've been. So let's talk about where you've been and how you and Stephanie connected and what you're doing these days for folks.
Okay, so I met Stephanie when I was, I had been released from Department of Corrections after 16 years. And I came home, I was still struggling with some mental illness and some drug use, and I just couldn't figure out, you know, how to get rid of that. I ended up catching new charges, and I was told I need to go clean up. And the place I went to is where I met Stephanie. She was not only the director there, but she was also my therapist. And I think that just her personality and her approach allowed me to let some of that guard down that I had built up in prison. I just didn't want to talk to nobody. I had some childhood things that I was keeping inside, and she just, you know, that's just what she does. You know, she used her skills. And we just started having conversations, and she helped me process a lot of that stuff that I was holding on to for a long time. Yeah.
How did it feel to get through that, and what barriers were you able to get through to really change your life?
So just talking about it and processing it, I always, I guess I carried a lot of shame, a lot of fear, a lot of guilt, and I just imploded, you know, and I started just using substances in excess, and it would always get me in trouble. So, you know, the barrier was just actually sitting down and being able to talk to another person about what I had experienced in the past that was bothering me.
Yep. So going back to your past, you know, we were talking before the show and stuff, and Steffi and I understand that there was some addiction issues, and that led to some significant time in prison, and we were talking about different yards and Kingman and other stuff like that. You know, going back to that, you know, I was at church this Sunday, and we were talking about how there's a lot of people in that room with us, even though we're there worshiping and talking and doing small groups and stuff. There's folks dealing with addiction, and the first part of it is you got to identify that you have a problem, right? That's the first thing. You know, going back to your past when you were going through the addiction, when did you identify the problem was really significant? Was it, after the crimes associated with your addiction that occurred, or was it sometime later while you were doing time? Was there anything inside of the prisons that were able to help you resourceful wise?
I think I noticed the problem in high school. I was kind of a star athlete in my high school, but I was just carrying this load that I didn't know how to deal with, and I was trying to mask it all the time, and I was trying to use sports as a platform to bury some of that childhood stuff. And I think I identified it then, and being that I continued on that path and just kept living wildly, and I took that into prison with me. So I really didn't identify it till I thought that the 16 years I did in prison was going to fix me, and it did not. I actually came home worse.
Wow. What were you in prison for, if you don't mind me asking?
I was in prison for second-degree murder and child endangerment. For that act was committed in the presence of my child.
And you did your 16 years, and then you got out and you met Stephanie. Now your life has changed significantly since,
yes.
Right? And the cool thing about you is you come on here and you're fearless when it comes to talking about what you did and how you ended up there, right? I think that takes a lot for a person to do. And then also identify that you have the addiction issue and you come out and you fight through it. Like, it's like it sounds like you were an athlete. What sport did you play?
Football, baseball, and I was in wrestling, and I ran track.
Okay. So you had a passion for it.
Yes.
You liked winning.
Yes.
Right. So now we're talking about winning in a different sense, right? It's like winning at life. So you come out of there. Most people, they give up so quick. We're talking almost 2 decades that you went through turmoil, and you come out, you're still standing, you're still rocking, right? And you put in effort to change your life. That's amazing. Right. And not only that, you're doing stuff to help other folks now.
Yeah.
Right. There's no better bridge of connection than seeing people who have experienced something on themselves. Right. We always hear these people talking about all the stuff you could do, especially in business. I'm sure you've heard it. You get 1,000 calls tomorrow if you do this, and this, and this. Right. But like, you're dealing with somebody that's selling you something they have no connection with. And we see it in our relationships with our business. Right, a lot of people work with us because they trust the brand and there's certainty with it. Right, now you have all this experience and wisdom that have gone through it, and you are sharing your story and helping people. Yes. Now, how are you doing that?
So initially, it was like through local rehabs. A lot of the population, not only do they struggle with substances, they struggle with criminal history. They're on probation, parole. Being that I had, navigated that area, I started like focusing more on that population and trying to build a bridge between law enforcement and these people that were thinking that they were the enemy. And they're not really the enemy. You're your own enemy. They're trying to help you, and just helping them, tone it down a little bit and be willing to accept the kind of help that I received from my probation and parole officers.
Yeah, so your probation and parole officers helped you.
Yes. Definitely wouldn't be here without them.
Okay, that's great to hear, because in today's world there's a culture issue where people really believe that law enforcement is just out to get them,
correct,
and keep them from succeeding and all that stuff. Which you are sitting here telling us that you're here today because of that part.
Yes,
right, and buying into the idea that they do want to help. Right, so now you get to talk. If I'm not mistaken, you now talk to parole and law enforcement partners to help folks.
Daily, yes.
Daily?
Yeah, daily.
What's a day in the life of that for you?
Just talking to, the officers to see if they're where they're supposed to be, their clients. Did they check in? Did they do this? I've also gotten to speak at not one, but 2 DTAP graduations, which is drug court and DTAP. And I think it just, I guess the message was like, it takes a village to work on people. So not only the providers such as Stephanie, all these people that are there providing the mental health, the medical health, but also the legal system that's there also trying to guide you. Some people need structure. I needed structure. But you have to be willing to accept all this help from people, and I think that was the best thing. And I also am a reentry coach for PPAP for Fresh Start. So all these guys that are coming home, from prison that don't know what a home health is, that don't know, that still struggle with mental illness, that don't know how to get connected to start dealing with some of those things before the drugs come back in. And I just kind of help them, give them some pointers, take them to appointments, sit there and talk to them, and just explain how I was able to use these resources and overcome some of those barriers.
When you're working with folks in law enforcement, and this is an opinion question, so folks that are listening that might be real critical about everything, just want to preempt that. What do you feel is the biggest cause for setback with somebody that's working on reentry or rehabilitation?
I think I want to say stigma. They come out knowing that they got a big fight ahead of them. I had a lot of difficulty navigating applications, background checks, all this stuff. So I think I just think that's one of the huge barriers is just the self-esteem, self-confidence that they have already failed before they've even tried and used all these new resources that are available.
Yeah. So how do you lead somebody that's feeling that? What is your advice to them on that?
Compliance. If you have some legal things that you got to deal with, and you also have these other things medically and mentally, how do you make it all work together? Compliance, communication, get your supervising agency involved. And that's what I try to do is, there's been people that have been on the run for a year and taunting probation. I was like, oh, slow down. Let's give your PO a call. It's time to, face the music. And a lot of them I found lately that they're willing to work with their person, with their client, So just kind of breaking that perception that people get, that's law enforcement, they're trying to get me. And just trying to introduce that, no, they're not trying to get you, they're trying to help you. That's been kind of tough sometimes.
Do you have a favorite success story from your work, or one that's a work in progress? I got
several. I got people see people behind dumpsters, shooting up, doing dope, whatever. He's now an assistant executive director at a place.
Wow. And
he was in one of my programs, and I also have another one who was the one taunting and on the run, absconding, and I just sat him down, and I had a 5-minute window to try to convince him to stay and do what we were trying to get him to accomplish. He did it, and last month, he was just named Employee of the Month for a facility that has 200 employees that's very competitive, with BHTs, with RSSs, with all these people. So, yeah, I have a couple of pretty good success stories. That's just two of the ones that come into mind.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've got a podcast. So where can people listen to this podcast, and what do you guys talk about on there?
So I'm actually a co-host for a podcast. It's called Artcast, and it's just a bunch of different people's journeys. Some of them are clients, some are staff, some are providers. There's just a various group of people. And it's basically on stories in the field, recovery, from different perspectives, from a client perspective, from law enforcement. We're going to do some with law enforcement. We're also going to we've done some with providers, therapists, administrators, just everybody's perception. And it's www.buzzsprout.com. I think that's. And yeah, so we're just trying to get just people to tune in. A lot of people are afraid to talk about their past. I was more ashamed, and I think just getting people to open up and talk to someone. A lot of people don't realize that that's a big, giant piece of that first part of being able to heal. If you keep it inside you are going to take that with you. And once I was lucky enough to dump all my stuff here on Steph, it was just so freeing, and she took it to different levels, these things that I saw as a child. She's like, well, call cold case detective. And I did. I called Pima County cold case detectives, and they came out. They're like, you can't know this unless you were there. I said, I think I was, So I started explaining all these things from childhood, drawing maps, pictures, and I used to have a lot of nightmares and trouble sleeping, and that carried on all through my adult years. And after I did that, just that little piece, I've slept like a baby since, and I don't know whatever came about their investigation. I just know that I was able to finally tell somebody, and they took that information and they were going to do what they had to do with it,
So you feel like your use of substances was to block that pain and everything else that was going on?
I think so. It was just like an escape, I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to deal with it. And the drunker I got, the higher I got, I wouldn't, But then once all that went away, it was right back there,
Yeah. But this is more of a question for like the family aspect. And, a lot of people wonder when the first time of introduction of a substance was and, what was going on. And, I used to be former law enforcement, and I worked out at one of the high schools here locally, and I would see that as a spot where a lot of introduction would happen. And I'm sure we can all attest to that. Even us in high school saw that was where people were like really trying and experimenting and doing things. When was it for you, and what prompted you to continue the use from it?
So I think, I grew up in a really weird time. I was in high school in the 80s, Marijuana was kind of switching up to cocaine, So cocaine, all these TV shows and they glorified it, Scarface
yeah.
And all the money and all the girls and all the women and all the parties. And I think that's where it started in high school. And I saw the attraction that was involved and associated with that kind of drug. And it sucked me in,
Yeah. So cocaine was the substance, because now we're dealing with a lot of fentanyl for the most part, and heroin. So yeah, cocaine. In my law enforcement experience, we didn't see cocaine too often, and that was from like 2010 to 2020. We didn't see a lot of cocaine. Every once we did come across crack cocaine once. And we were like, "Whoa, this is what is this?" We were like, but going back to the 80s and stuff like that. Did you move into any other substances off that, or did you stay with that?
When I was incarcerated in 2000, when I went in, it was all alcohol and cocaine mostly. While in prison, it turned into meth and heroin, really bad.
And that's because you could get the drugs in the facilities.
Oh yeah,
yeah. People don't realize that, right? They think it's like, yeah.
No, it's just as prevalent in the facility as it was out, probably even more.
And does it cost more?
Yes.
Yeah, significantly. A lot, right? Yeah. So that's something to talk about that, people don't really realize. I have conversations with folks and they're like, wait, there was drugs in the prison. I'm like, yeah, you have your visitation that comes in. You have, officers that go rogue and other things you don't believe. Yeah, they're like, whoa.
Civilian workers.
Yeah. There's all kinds of ways for it to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not foolproof in that aspect, but yeah, thanks for answering that, because I know a lot of folks always go, well, when does it start? And, how can we address it and everything? And then going back to the meth in prison, I was outside. It was an open yard. So, inmates and COs were all over the place and right next to each other.
Yeah.
And you have conversations, you know what I mean? It's not like everybody's fighting everybody and all this stuff all the time. And there's a respect level you understand. And I remember there's a gentleman that just decided to open up one day and tell me why he was there. I didn't ask him, but he just, we had conversed a few times, and he started talking about his life, and he basically, he said that everything was good until he tried meth. And after that, it really, really spiraled into the point where he was so high on meth that he blacked out, and he killed his best friend. Someone he loved dearly. Yeah. Would never in his right mind ever harm that person. But in his blackout, he actually took his friend's life.
Yeah.
And now he's in there from that. Yeah. And I was like, man, but he was comfortable enough to talk about it. He's like, really, meth really impacted me. But I'm pretty sure he was involved with some cool programming inside of the prison as well that people probably don't know either, but there's programming to help, and then the inmates can teach other inmates, and you can get, I can get a degree in there, right? If you really do it right, HVAC certifications, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I think prison has really vamped up their reentry programs, and I've been fortunate enough to go to Tucson Complex, Yuma, Douglas, Florence, and Tucson 3 times. So I've gone in there and shared, and they're really trying to educate. There's people becoming RSSs in there that are teaching each other, courses on substance abuse, and so it's a really good thing to see that they're putting so much energy into the process before you come home, not waiting till after you get out and then trying to figure it out, So trying to stay really involved with all that stuff.
That's good. Yeah, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it.
Another goal is to maybe go to some high schools, because I know that's a real critical time where people are trying to people please, and they're social media and peer pressure, and I got all these pictures of myself in high school and football and all this stuff, and I kind of show people, look, if I'd have stayed on that path, who knows, things might have been different, but I chose to involve myself in these other things, and I think if you can just help one kid not get sucked into that peer pressure and the drama of the parties and that kind of stuff, and stay with their goals, who knows who you can help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hit it right on the head. The social media is a big component to drug sales and use in high school.
Yeah.
As a SRO, I dealt with it all the time. Most of the cases that I dealt with stemmed from something on social media. Whether it was a threat, drug deals, child pornography being shared, different things, right? It all came from that. So yeah, having I think a voice in the schools would be really, really important. And I know, Stephanie, you've talked to some local police departments before. Have you guys actually met and talked about?
I have a couple times. I worked before I went out on my own. I worked at one of the prisons in Eloy with their RDAP program, the Residential Drug Abuse Treatment Program, and that's great. But we're filling holes here and there without putting everything together, and that's the problem I think most people have. If Ray goes in and talks to them and he gives them his story, and it resonates with them much differently than if I were to tell the story, because he's been there. He's got connections that I'll never have, but he doesn't have what they tell, the education piece. So that's just, and it's kind of the concept of getting all of those pieces together and helping people realize that the path you're on doesn't have to be the path you stay on. And like he said, how to redirect that, because you walk out of prison and you just walk out the door. What is the easiest thing to do? It's the easiest thing to do is to slide right back into the behaviors that you were in before. It may not be your goal, your plan, or what you intended, but it's really difficult to do these things on your own with no direction. Like you said, the job searches, you put that on your application. Where have you been the last 5-10 years? I've been in prison, and they just slide your application over. There's things that you can do to get yourself in a better place, but we have to do much better at directing and helping people see that before they walk out the door. Recognize that the life that you have to change when you go into prison. You have to do things differently, because that's how you survive. Everything in this world is about survival. Just walking out the door here, you got to worry about not getting hit by a car, and everything is about survival. And the skills you need in a prison are completely different than the skills you need when you leave. And nobody, it may seem common sense, but nobody says that. And how do you expect people who've lived a certain way for the last 10, 15 years to all of a sudden do things differently without any kind of direction or help? Or it's impossible. I shouldn't say that. It's not impossible. It's unlikely for people to be able to do that on their own. So to help maybe while they're there, when they're getting ready to leave, to help teach them the skills that this is what a job interview looks like. This is, you go open a savings account. These things, treat your addiction, mental health, all of these things combined will help you be successful. And I think it's, we just don't do enough of that. We're trying to fix problems after they occur instead of trying to get in there and prevent them from occurring in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, there's a film that paints a perfect picture of the institutionalization, right, that occurs in the system. You get Shawshank Redemption. When the old man leaves, right, there's no resource to him at all.
Yep.
Like and going from, and you see him struggling with not having direction and all that stuff that's there. Your schedule's filled out for you during the day. You see that happen, and that I remember seeing that. It broke my heart seeing that scene. You're like, man,
and it's true.
Yeah,
I felt really hopeless when I came home. You know, my family's all happy. Oh, you're free, and I'm like, wow, no, I'm not. I still had, all these levels of incarceration in my mind: the substance abuse, the depression, the trauma, the anxiety. They couldn't see that. That's just stuff that I was hiding with a smile, trying to keep it from them.
Yeah. So you're changing lives.
Yes, sir.
You really are. And you're doing a lot. And Stephanie as well. I mean, you're a product of what Stephanie's work, here, So, if you're struggling with something and you're here in the Marana or Royal Valley area or even Tucson, True North Counseling is a great resource to go to. I personally know Stephanie and the great work that she's doing. You have resources for people on your own too. Where can they go online to learn more about you and what you're doing?
So I own a company called Justice and Recovery United, and we're building the website now. It's brand new, so we're building it now. But I have a contact number is 520-820-4276.
That's good. Yeah. Hey, thanks for taking time to be on the show today. I think this was probably one of my favorite. Just getting something real out there, right? Because we're always kind of walking a line. Yeah, we're doing this. We're talking about tourism and other stuff, but coming in and just getting hit with it, right?
Yeah,
we're talking to somebody who's been in prison, but redeemed themselves, and they're here, and they're doing. I'm gonna say they're doing Lord's work. Yep. I mean, it really, really is.
Absolutely.
And so thank you so much for.
Of course, we're trying to tune it up a notch. I go do in-services at the probation departments, and I've gone to the parole. So now we're trying to tune it up a notch, and just go talk to the officers about what they're going to encounter. A lot of them think that everything's textbook. It's not. You're dealing with people with no education, with street education. How their approach is could make a big difference, like it did for me, because the ones that approach me, and I can say this now, how they both work in program that I oversee now, my IPS officer and my surveillance officer.
How cool is that, man?
Yeah, so I mean, we just we built a bond, and that's what we're trying to bridge that gap of defiance to make it work.
Yeah, and you bring up a challenging point. Is every person's different. Every person's got their struggles, and you talk about education levels and upbringings and just culture in general. I mean, you got to be able to communicate with folks on that. And it's hard for people to get to trust people when they've been let down a lot.
Right.
You know what I mean? I talked to people when I was in law enforcement, and you see where they're at, and it's just because they didn't have just a good system in place for them. They didn't have good parents. They didn't have a good home. They didn't have anything. They didn't have good education, and you're like. You come in there and you start trying to redirect somebody like, hey, you need to do this and that. Well, you can't just come in there. Like,
right.
You gotta build that trust, and it's really, really important. So
compassion and love, those are the two key elements.
It is, yeah. Hey, well, thank you so much for being on the show, Ray. We really appreciate it. Listeners, again, go ahead and reach out if you're dealing with anything. You can reach out to any of these folks, and they can point you in the right direction. So we're going to get the next guest here that Stephanie has for us, Shena, right?
Yes.
She's going to be jumping on the show with us right after this break. So we'll see you back here in a bit.
In Marana, community isn't just where we live, it's who we are. And at the heart of it all is the Marana Chamber of Commerce. We are building a thriving community through connected business leadership. We start the month bright and early with Marana Mornings, sparking real conversations and connections. We celebrate growing networks at our 4th Tuesday mixers, hosted in exciting spaces. We unite visionaries and leaders at Impact Marana, driving meaningful progress together. We look ahead with Marana Insights, hearing directly from regional voices about what's next for our town. And we serve, through the passion of our board of directors and ambassadors, creating a culture of belonging through service and leadership. Because of our members, we're not just doing more, we're becoming more. Together, we're shaping the future of Marana. We are the Marana Chamber of Commerce.
Looking for the best outdoor patio in Tucson? Look no further than St. Philip's Plaza at the southeast corner of River and Campbell, where you can sip on Tucson's finest collection of whiskey at Union Public House, brunch 7 days a week at Reforma Modern Mexican Mezcal and Tequila, and experience our newest restaurant, Proof, proudly serving house-made pasta and artisanal pizza. Enjoy live music and dine under the stars with Union, Reforma, and Proof. Join us at St. Philip's Plaza.
Hi, this is Sean McCluskey, co-owner and designated broker for Rincon Ventures. If you're a rental owner by choice or by accident and you're looking to hire or change property management companies, consider Rincon Ventures. We employ an aggressive web-based advertising strategy to market your rental. We thoroughly screen prospective tenants and conduct routine property inspections. Our online system gives tenants the ability to pay rent and file maintenance requests instantly over the web. Our owners can use the same system to instantly check on their properties. Call Rincon Ventures at 881-2258 or visit us on the web at rvprop.com.
My heat and air were in a state of disrepair.
The summer is hot, but you don't have to be hot. Your air conditioner works hard to keep you cool all summer long. Call Picturox Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing to keep your air conditioner running in tip-top shape for the long, hot summer. Our highly trained technicians will provide peace of mind knowing that you will be comfortable throughout the hot weather. Picturox Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing, keeping you cool all summer long. 520-492-0748.
Picture Rocks Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing.
And we're back with another guest, with Stephanie. And we have with us Shena Jones. Shena, I saw on your bag the Phoenix Suns logo. Are you a diehard, or what's going on with that?
No, I used to take my son to it, and I love the Phoenix. To me, represents me overcoming a lot of stuff that's gone on in my life.
Yeah.
So if it has a phoenix on it or a wolf on it, I will usually buy it.
Nice. Good to know. Good to know. So we had a guest before you talking about redemption and hope, and this episode, this show today is about hope and overcoming significant challenges, and then not only that, providing service and helping others, which you're doing now.
Yes.
Right? You've got the Green Wolf, strength of the wolf, wellness of the earth. So you have herbs and stuff that people can use. What's the whole goal behind what that stands for, the Green Wolf?
So I started Green Wolf because I had rheumatoid arthritis, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, hypertension, all of that. And so after getting sober, I would get, as I was learning, I took classes to learn how to control all of these things. I used to go to a rheumatoid specialist, and the medication that they had me on almost caused my liver to explode. And so I'd asked the doctor if he could put me on something that wasn't as strong, because otherwise the medication was going to kill me faster than the RA. And he told me that if I couldn't or wouldn't take his medication that he prescribed, that he could no longer see me. He had my records transferred back to my regular doctor before I was even out of his office. And so I went on the journey of trying to figure out how to control this on my own, and started discovering eating right and making medicine out of plants. Got it to where I got it under control, and then it went into remission. And I've been in remission for a few years. And different people that I know that I would tell this to, they would be like, oh, well, I have this. Do you have anything for that? Can you make this? So I would like, sure. And so I would, get the herbs, and I would make the medicine, and I would give it to them, and it would work, and they'd be happy. And so then I'm continuously giving them the medicine. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm paying for their medicine.
Ding.
Yeah. So I decided, well,
Let's flip that.
yes.
Yeah.
And then that's how Green Wolf came about.
It's really cool. As good as Western medicine is, it has a plenty of faults. And I think that, pharmaceuticals have been pushed to points where people think it's the one-all solution. But my family, we've seen how much diet can come into play in a lot of things. In mood, health, you name it, physical, the way you just feel. And it's just because you take time to read on what is available as far as herbs and different things and vitamins that you can take. And it's nice to hear that there's a resource like that available where folks can go to something else other than just getting that prescribed medication.
Yes. At one time, I needed cane when I would get off work. By the time I would leave work and get home, the RA I had swollen, my joints had swollen so much that I could barely get out of my car. I could barely walk. And now I go on 23, 24-mile hikes. I hike the highest mountains. And I have and then afterwards, I can drive home and I can hop right out of my car and do whatever else I want to do.
It's really cool. So how long have you been sober?
I have been sober 5.5 years. This October will be 6 years.
Wow. And then, let's go back to everything before the Green Wolf. Let's work back there and come back. So where were you at? What was going on? And how did you overcome this?
There has been many of things throughout my whole life. So as for most people, life has not been easy. But there was something that happened that completely broke me. My son had been in a car accident. He was the passenger. Him and I overcame that together. He almost died. And then he had severe seizures and everything from the head trauma. And but we put our lives back together, worked real hard, learned everything I could about brains so that I could help him, his rehabilitation. And then he passed away. He passed away with a massive seizure. He went into cardiac arrest in the middle of the night. And that night, before we went to bed, gave him a hug and everything, gave him a kiss on the cheek, and we both said, meet you out here on the patio for coffee, because we would always meet out on the patio and have coffee in the morning before I went to work. And so he had passed away. I found him. I couldn't do anything to save him. And so I couldn't be more broken. And I was mad at everything and everybody, including myself, mostly myself, because I wasn't able to save him. I should have been there. So I developed a very bad drinking problem. I was what they call a functioning alcoholic. I would be able to be sober long enough to go to work. And then as soon as I got home, that was it. And I would drink because if I drank enough, I wouldn't think about it anymore. And then I could just fall asleep. But even in my sleeps, I would wake up. I would dream the whole thing over. So finally, I decided to enroll myself into a rehab center. And that's where I met Stephanie. She's my hero.
She's awesome.
Yes. So I did the work. And whenever I was there for about a month. It was a month, right?
A little over.
Yeah. And so I was scared. She's taken me home. And she asked if I needed to stop at the grocery store to get anything before she dropped me off. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to go in there by myself. And she was like, I'll go in with you. Because I was afraid if I went in, when I walked past that alcohol aisle, I would grab alcohol. So she did. She went in with me. There was, I wanted it really bad. There was plenty of chances for me to start drinking again. I was able to come up with a million reasons in my head daily of why it would be okay for me to start drinking again. And then I had to remind myself that then the only person I'm lying to is myself. Everybody else wouldn't know until it got real bad again. Then everybody would know I've been lying. So in doing that, being strong, I found my voice. And then once I found my voice, I just started taking off. And it was still a challenge every day, but every day I was a winner and I was victorious because I didn't give in to it. And then every day that gave me more strength and more strength, kind of like a snowball. Mm-hmm. And each day that snowball got bigger and bigger. And then I found myself standing up to people, you know, taking my space back, not being walked on. And I also found that it made me be there for other people and be more empathetic and love people more. And I know that sounds weird, but that's the only way I can describe it. By me learning to love myself, I actually started caring more about other people too.
Yeah.
And then from there, the same thing with herbs and stuff. In getting tinctures, they're almost always made out of alcohol. And I can't take those. So all of my tinctures and everything I do is safe for anybody with alcohol sensitivity. So it can help other people. I want to help other people the way Stephanie helped me in every way that I can. So I try to give as much as I can, even if it's not tinctures. If I see someone who is showing signs of deep depression, things like that, I'll step in and I'll tell them. Maybe it's none of my business, but I'll tell them, hey, I know something's going on. I'll get them to talk and, you know, recognize things that Stephanie helped me recognize in me when I was there that were signs and the things that could be triggers, and how not everything that happens is not your fault. Sometimes life just happens. You have to figure out how to be strong enough to do your part and just keep moving through it.
Yeah. You talked about something in particular that I see with people I know in life that are dealing with addiction stuff that, you know, they may not think that we see it and know, like they're functioning, right? And we know, you know, and we love them. So we love them and we go with that. And one thing we see is like this rationalization, right? You were having that rationalization with yourself. Like, if I drink today, it's not that big of a deal. No one's gonna know. It'll make me feel better. I'll be able to go to bed. Be able to go to sleep a lot easier, right? Like you have those rational where you're trying to rationalize all that, and I always see that as like that's to me, that person I'm seeing it from, that must be their biggest struggle, is not only they rationalizing it to me, but they're communicating it to me so that they can feel better, or to somebody else so they can feel better about how that person responds to it, right?
Yes.
Like, oh yeah, no, that's totally fine, you know, like then it makes them feel better about it. But even, you know, having that doing that with yourself, what were you doing to get through that, to beat that? Like, did you have a hobby? Were you doing, was there some kind of outlet that would help you escape that, your mind trying to rationalize what it was trying to tell you as far as drinking?
Yeah, I'm the kind of person where I'm pretty frank right out there with people. And so I had to be that way with myself. I spent a lot of time laying on the floor, holding my dogs, getting my dogs to lay on me and all that, and playing with them. As my health got better, I would start walking, hiking, doing those kind of things. When I got to where I could do all that again, that actually became my biggest pillar. The biggest strength I had was whenever I was having, really rough. There's days when really rough at work, and all I wanted to do was drink, and the craving was so bad. So even though I was exhausted, I would go hiking at nighttime, and I would hike 8 miles, and I would be exhausted the next day, but I made it through another day. I had to keep reminding myself that if I do it, I'm only lying to myself, and then I'm not getting anywhere. And then I also would always, remember different conversations that I had with Stephanie. One that she told me about my son and the type of seizures he had and how it couldn't have been my fault. I learned a lot from her.
Yeah. I think there's a misconception that like once you hit this part of sobriety, that it's just like it's like the end game. Like you get to walk away and go, all right, I'm sober, I made it.
Yeah.
And I think people think about that a lot in life too, with a lot of other things. Like when you become successful, that there's no challenges afterwards, and that life is just roses and and rainbows and all that, right? But I have some friends that are, they're really proud of their sobriety, and they talk about it off. They're open about it. And I know that they do that because it like, what do you call it? Reignites the fire in them. That I did it. I can do another 10 years. Like, you know what I mean? But it never ends. The fight for it, right?
No. Still to this day, sometimes I crave, and I have to distract my brain from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think most people have some kind of vice or something that everybody struggles with something, whether it's like they like going and eating 10 donuts or something, even if it's that, right? Like it's still something that can have an impact. Like you talked about the compounding effect. When you keep doing something really bad over and over and over again, it's going to take you down. But if you keep doing something really well over and over and over again, you're just going to it's really going to benefit you. And I think everybody's facing that battle every day. Right. So like, for the listeners and viewers for this show, like just know that there's a connection of battles, and that you've found hiking and walking is a great way to create some stability in your continuing efforts of sobriety.
Yes. And sometimes just going in the kitchen and making up some herbs and some medicine. It's a very good distraction. I love to put on the opera. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm making my medicine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's I'm gonna look for a recommendation here, and I'm trying to think of how to ask it. What's your best recommendation for that calming, getting ready to go to bed soon, tea or drink, or with some herbal? Something herbal that would be great.
I have 2 things. One is a tincture, and it is called Calm Mind. Mm-hmm. And then the other one I have is Happy Hormones. So the Happy Hormones is a tea, and you just take like 1 tablespoon, make your tea out of it, and then there's no like brain effect, or it's not like getting high. It just makes you just calm, relax. So like if you're stressed, like you can kind of tell that your muscles will kind of relax a little bit, and then you actually fall asleep naturally.
I like that, because I use like chamomile tea for the
So
most part,
it's similar to that. It's just a little stronger. And
that's what I'm looking to hear.
It actually has chamomile in it.
Yeah. My wife would appreciate these questions as well, too. 'Cause she's a big tea drinker. So I'm like, hey, let's, her birthday's coming up. So I might have to get some of your stuff for her.
Yes, and I'm always making more. My website's been live now for 2-3 weeks. But I've been working on it for at least 2.5 years. And so I'm always getting more stuff. I will be having more teas, more tinctures, more variety of different stuff. So it's just now I've got it all going. I've got the website. I have all that. So it'll just be now just I can concentrate more on making more variety.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So you're in a room and you're sitting face to face with somebody going through an addiction issue. They're drinking alcohol. And they want to figure things out and get out of it and work to be sober. What are you telling that person?
I know a great counselor.
Perfect.
I've actually done that before. And then I'll tell them my story. And I'll tell them that besides having a good counselor, you got to make sure that you're truthful with yourself. That's huge. If you're going to lie to yourself, you're not going to make it.
That's what a lot of people do during the whole process, right? They're lying to themselves for the most part, every day. Yeah. Does every counselor go into a store with somebody? Like, I don't think that happens all the time.
She's amazing.
I don't even remember. A lot of times people get picked up. I don't remember the specific circumstances as to why I gave you a ride home.
That sounded like a pivotal moment in her story there. Like, it might not seem like it, but I was like thinking back to him, like, she went in the store.
Well, I figured she had been in treatment for a month, so she wouldn't have anything in her house to eat when she got home. So that was kind of why what sparked me to say, do you want to stop at the store? Mm-hmm. But
and I didn't have my vehicle because I was drunk whenever I called the shuttle to come get me and take me.
Yeah. It's almost like an ironic situation, right? You're like, let's go to somewhere where it has your weakness there. It has your kryptonite available.
And unfortunately, when alcohol is your kryptonite, it's everywhere.
Every store, if you look at it, somehow will direct you to that area.
Yep.
And then anytime you go out to eat somewhere, for the most part, there's alcohol available. They hand you, they have the drink menu right there for you. So even if you're not even going in there, it's like, oh, it's half off margarita day, or whatever. There's always that temptation for it. And I don't think people like, being former law enforcement, the amount of tragic events that occurred because of alcohol.
Absolutely.
Like I lost somebody that I was really close with when I was in high school to a drunk driver. You know what I mean? And it's like it causes a lot of issues. I mean, yeah, you can be responsible or whatever, but I don't know if that outweighs a lot of the bad that we see from it. And it's and like you said, you go into a store, they'll have it on end caps. They'll have it displayed everywhere.
And the important thing
guess where I work.
That's right. She works in a grocery store. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see it every day? Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah.
And that beginning part, and that's why I always, even now, my clients all have my cell phone number. I know Shena would text me every year when she got her new chip for 1 year sober, 2 years sober. I wouldn't hear from her all year, but I would get a text like, oh, my 2-year chip, and I would get so excited because I do what I do because I love what I do, and I want, reach out to me at any point if something's going on. I want her to know if 2 weeks, 2 years down the road, if she gets in a position where she needs some support, call me, text me. Mm-hmm. I look at it that's my job forever. I mean, if I can say something, do something, or just be a support for a moment, why wouldn't I do that?
Right.
I mean, I get thrilled. I love to hear from people that their lives are in a much better place, whether it's me as a part of it or not, whatever. If you're in a better place now and you check in with me and this is where I am, and it makes me so very happy. And then the lives that just like Ray, that Shena is touching on a day-to-day basis, people whose lives she's making better that wouldn't be in the position they're in if not for her. So it is a domino effect. It's consistent. It's when you receive help from somebody else. I was hit by a drunk driver when I was 17 years old. I almost lost my life, and I spent a very long time in occupational therapy, rebuilding. I was told I'd probably, I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at right now. I'd always be living with support and help. And a wonderful occupational therapist got me to where I am right now. And it's just a snowball effect. Somebody helps you, and you turn around and you give that to somebody else, and then they turn around and it's just, that's what society should be. It should be us consistently. If you can help somebody do something, make their lives better, there you go.
Yeah, agreed. Go serve. Well, how do folks find you, Stephanie?
I'm here in this complex here at 4249 West Ina at the end of Old Father. You can reach me at 520-261-0818. Taking new clients, and I've got another therapist who I've just brought on with me. So give me a call.
Good for that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Cool. And what website do they go to check out your cool herbal resources you have?
greenwolfherbs.com.
greenwolfherbs.com. Go and check it out. Well, thank you so much for coming today and bringing on these amazing guests. And I wish you continued success in your triumph.
Thank you.
And, we'll cross paths again soon, I'm sure. So wish you guys the best week ever. And I hope that the summer is easy on all of us because it's hot. It's so hot. It's so hot. As always, thank you so much for listening and watching the MOV experience. If you find yourself with some free time, which probably not a lot of you have, our website/app for this is in beta, which means it's there, but it's not fully operating. So the reason we leave it that way is we're looking for feedback on what you would want to see in that app/website. So what we're focusing on is places to stay, attractions to go to, places to eat, important resources for folks to know about in the area. You can go and check it out at movexperience.org. And just go in there and have fun. We also have Lila. Lila is our local expert guide. So if you have any questions or you're looking for somewhere to eat, Lila does a pretty good job at this point of providing you with some great information. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.